What inspired me to write The Dream Giver is people wanted to know what's the flip side to the prayer of Jabez. If I ask God to bless me and expand my territory, I'm asking Him to do that for me. But the flip side of that is, what about me? What can I do to live my life to its complete fullness? How can I live the dream that I wish could come true? And what the book does is it tries to boil all the way down into a practical step-by-step of how to find your dream, how to embrace it, and how to live in such a way that by the end of your life, you're standing on the finish line saying, I lived the dream. You know, the question of whether or not everybody has a dream is in the back of almost everybody's mind. They know they have a dream, but they wonder, I wonder what percentage of everybody has a dream. Now that I've talked to so many people about this, I've been utterly convinced, not only theoretical but practical, that everybody not only has one primary dream that they long to do, wish they could do, but they also have a number of other side shoots from that dream that I'd love to do that, I'd love to do that. And my conclusion is everybody has a multiple set. It's almost like a tree with branches inside of them. And beneath the surface is this core part of who they are wanting to come out to the top. That's their dream. And everybody's got it. I would say one of the surprising things about a dream is people severely underestimate their importance. If you don't have a dream, if you don't have something you're going toward, then you are wandering in a land that's not really your destiny. You're waiting for this to have happened, or this thing occurs, and this thing occurs, or somebody asks you to do something, and you are just kind of wandering in whatever takes place rather than, I am going toward a destiny that my heart is thrilled about and I know I'm supposed to do. I think there's very few things as important as knowing your dream or knowing enough about your dream to pursue it in a direction, because that's where fulfillment and saying, I've done something that really makes a difference. It's in the direction of your dream. You know, there are numerous things that stop a person from following their dream. Everybody's dream is overwhelming to them. I've never yet met somebody who had a little tiny dream. I've never met anybody who said, I don't want to do my dream. Every single person has a dream that is bigger than they can imagine. Therefore, they don't want to tell anyone because they don't know quite if they could do it. But what begins to take place is people think, I can't do that dream. It's too big. And they make a decision that says, because I can't do it today, it shouldn't mean that I can't do it next year if I proceed in this direction. So I think number one, people misunderstand that there's a lot of growth capacity in them. And if the dream's inside of them, they are meant to accomplish it. I think the second reason is all of us have a safety net, a comfort zone that we live in. And the dreams that we have are never inside of what we're doing at the present. They're always way out there. They're always in this faraway land. And as you get to the edge of your comfort zone, you begin to feel really uncomfortable and fearful. And you say to yourself, that can't be the right dream, because I wouldn't feel so afraid. And therefore we run way back and we say, you know, when I don't feel afraid, then I'm going to do my dream. And the problem is, you'll never stop being afraid at the edge of your comfort zone. You have to pay the price. To follow the dream, you have to pay the price of saying, I'm going through the wall of fear. And now that the book's been in the marketplace for a little while, I have so many people coming to me. I mean, they come up to me and they say something like this. You know, I had no idea you were reading my life. And when I read this book, it's like you've just read my whole life story. And I know exactly what's going on in my life for the first time. Then I have parents who come up to me and say, you know, I love that story at the beginning about Ordinary, who has this dream in his heart because he doesn't want to be a nobody. He wants to be a somebody, and he needs to follow his dream. And I have many parents come up and say, I'm reading this to my 7-year-old and 9-year-old kids at night, and they won't let me stop reading it. So this book is an everyone book. Everybody who reads this book doesn't say, this isn't for me, or I don't like this. People come up and say, you know, this is the way life really is. I'm so glad, finally, to understand the dream world that I'm living in. I think the older we grow, and the more we have lived, the more we realize that life is precious. And that it's, although when we're younger it feels like it's going to last forever, and we can't see the finish line, the older you get, the closer you get to your finish line, and the more you begin to think, what did I trade my life for? I live my life, and I have something in exchange for it. And it's those people who say, I'm going to switch my life for the dream. I'm going to give my time, my energy, some of my finances, I'm going to sacrifice to do the dream that's in my heart. I'm not going to say I can't. I'm not going to run away. I'm not going to give excuses. I'm going to find a way to live my dream, even if nobody else believes in it but me. You know, it's those people, as they get older, who are the ones that other people say, boy, that person's a genius. Look what they've done. Or, man, I wish I could have a life like that. And they misunderstand that that person is the same as they are, only they paid the price to follow the dream, where another person either rationalized reasons why they couldn't do the dream or weren't willing to pay the price tag. It's the people then that follow the dream that toward the end of their life aren't looking back with a huge hole of regret. They're looking back saying, you know, I accomplished what I was supposed to do on this life, and you know, it was important, it was significant, and I had a full life, and it made a big difference to a lot of people. You know, I think it's pretty normal for a human being to want to dream to make a lot of money. And the younger you are, the more that's a part of your dream. Because you link two things. Making a lot of money means I'll be happy because I'll be successful. And as a person begins to pursue that, you soon find out that that is a selfish dream. I'm living to get money for me because I have the money, then I can buy what I want, go where I want, do what I want. But you know, everything that is what I want ultimately isn't what you want. And until you learn that the dream is bigger than what you want, you'll never discover your destiny. Your destiny is, making money is fine, it's a part of it, but to be honest with you, making a lot of money, a lot of my friends have made a lot, doesn't bring any more happiness to the person. But neither does poverty bring happiness either. It's not poverty or wealth that brings happiness, it's what are you giving your life in exchange for that brings happiness. Because I've met some people who struggle for tomorrow's food, who live an extremely significant life and are filled with joy and happiness and fulfillment. And I've met people who are got $500–600 million and are empty inside. So the issue of wanting to be wealthy or having a dream to be wealthy is a normal person's dream, but it's not meant to be the final place you're going. It's usually something you grow through and you grow over and you realize, you know, that's not really the essence of life. It's part of life, but it certainly isn't the essence of it. Dreams come from different places. I think there's dreams that come from our own emotions and our own thoughts. We see something and we say, I would love to do that right there. That's maybe yours. Sometimes somebody comes alongside of you and puts their arm around you and say, you know, I could see you doing this right over here. And as soon as you hear that, something happens in your mind and you say, whoa, this happened to me this week. Somebody was sharing on an interview what they did, and when they did, my heart unexpectedly really, whoa, I'm being caught off guard here. And I actually backed away from the person because it was so sensitive to me. So that's an unexpected planting of a dream. But ultimately, the big dream, the lifelong pull of your life, I believe is given to you. You don't invent it. When you talk to a child and you say, what do you want to be when you grow up? Everybody has an answer for that. And their parents didn't tell them that. And they didn't sit down and say, let me think of the 15 alternatives of what my dream could be. They have a dream. And that's because it's inside of them. And I believe that the dream giver actually gives everyone probably more than one dream. And we then are the ones who must discover it and uncover it, but not invent it. Do you believe that everybody really, Rick, has a dream inside of their heart?
Oh, absolutely. I think because we're created in God's image, God made us to be dreamers. God is a dreamer. And we're most like Him when we're creative.
Yeah, but do you think that the dream is something we're supposed to invent, as we finally figure out these are the things I'd like to do? Do we invent our dream, do you think?
Oh, no. It's placed in us from birth, and it's based on how we are shaped. The Bible says, I formed you in your mother's womb. And in that unique shaping process that God uses to make us who we are, He shapes us for a reason.
Now, go back in your life for a minute. Mm-hmm. So you lead this great big movement in this big church here. So when you go back and you were growing up, what were you wishing you could do as you were growing up?
It's interesting. I've always wanted to make an impact with my life, and I didn't know how to do it. When I was a kid, I just thought, I want to make a difference.
So that was part of the dream?
It was. The whole dream was really about how can I influence people for good? Mm. And I didn't even know what I wanted to do. I was just wired to influence. And so, for instance, from early on, I was always like running for class presidents and stuff like that every year through high school and college. And God was wiring me to make influence. Interesting. I thought originally I'd be in government. And
I could see you in government.
I thought about going into politics. In fact, when I was a sophomore in high school, I got a job as a lifeguard. Actually, when I was a sophomore in high school, I got an appointment to the United States Senate as a Senate page. And I thought, well, I'm going to get this job, and I'll make a career in government and make a difference with my life. But that summer, they called and said, you're not coming right now. You're going to come in the fall. And so I got a job as a lifeguard at a Christian camp, and it was there I gave my life to the Lord completely, surrendered wholeheartedly, and I said, Lord, whatever you want me to do. And at that point, God doesn't slow you down. He just changes your directions. Mm-hmm. And so He still used that desire to influence, but now it's going to be influence people for Him.
Mm. So, when you talk to people about influence, certain people want to influence a few people deeply. Mm-hmm. Other people so, and some people want to just do a whole lot of people. Mm-hmm. What's been in you since you were little?
I've always been a group person. I've always, I walk into a room and I just enjoy, I love people. And because I love people, then people love me. And there's a natural affinity because people like people who like them. And I genuinely like people.
And were your dreams for influencing a small number of people, or was it for influencing a lot of people?
No, it was always to influence a lot of people. I did not. It's interesting, I grew up in a very small town, less than 500 people, and you might have thought, well, how would a guy in a small town be used in such a large way, a worldwide way? And it was God put it in me, and He wired me.
And you wanted to do this?
I wanted to do it. In fact, people talk about how they often surrendered to God's call. I didn't surrender. I jumped at the chance. There wasn't anything I'd rather do.
Now, when you began to influence people, you began to speak to larger and larger groups. Yeah. You probably didn't have any fear in you about speaking, did you?
What's interesting is that God often uses the thing we feel weakest in to make it our strength. The Bible says in Hebrews their weakness was turned into strength. And really that's interesting to me. I was born with a brain disorder that makes public speaking very uncomfortable. And I actually don't like to speak, but what happens is God uses it, and you say, well, then why do you do it? Because I'm addicted to the results. I love to see changed lives. People say, well, I love to speak. Well, I don't really love to speak. I love to see lives changed, and so I do that to see it happen.
As you've expanded your vision over the years,
Yeah.
I mean, as long as I've known you, the vision has continued to grow and grow and grow.
Let me say about that, I have what I call Polaroid vision.
Polaroid vision.
Polaroid vision. Some people, when they look at the future, they've got it all mapped out. And I love it when I see people like that. Some people know from the very start exactly what God wants them to do, what the dream is. I'm going to do this, and it's going to look like this, and it's going to be this way. And you know what? That's put by God in them. In me, it was more like a Polaroid picture. When I look at that picture, the longer I hold it, the clearer it gets. And that's really been true in my life, is that, for instance, when I came to start Saddleback Church, I didn't have all of the vision for how it's expanded today, even into helping other churches and around the world. I just knew God wanted me to plant a church. And so it was like unrolling the scroll. I could see that much. And I went ahead and I was scared to death to do it. But I went ahead and did it anyway.
You were scared to death? People who look at you, they wouldn't say you had a fear at all. You don't really mean you did.
You know, Bruce, every single major thing that God has blessed in my life, I did in fear.
Wait a minute, wait.
Every single
let's
thing.
rewrite the tape a little bit. You're actually meaning you really did have fear inside of you?
Absolutely. In fact, I actually believe that leadership is moving against your fear. In fact, I don't want to follow a leader who has no fear.
What are you afraid about? When those moments come, somebody's listening to this and they're saying, well, what were you afraid of?
Oh, I think, all of the common fears everybody has. The fear of disappointing others, the fear of failure, the fear of criticism. The moment you put your shingle out, somebody's going to start throwing rocks at it.
Well, did you pray the fear away? How did you get the fear to leave?
No, I happen to believe you do the right thing in spite of your fear. Courage, as you know, is not the absence of fear. It's moving against your fear. And the people who really succeed in life are those who do it in spite of their fear.
You mean if I'm out there and I'm saying, I can't wait till my fear goes away, then I'll do my dream.
It ain't going to happen. It's not going to happen. In fact,
what's not going to happen?
The fear is not going to go away until you do it. In fact, it's when you step in the water, after you do it, the fear starts to subside. It's not before, it's after you step into the water.
What do you tell yourself, Rick, when you're feeling this fear and yet you're wanting to do this? What do you do? How do you process?
Well, the first thing I do is I check my motives. Because the Bible says there's no fear in love, but perfect love casts out all fear. And when I'm afraid, it means I'm loving me more than somebody else. Because really, what motivates a woman to run into a burning building and grab a little child? It's her child that she loves. And at that point, the love for that child exceeds the fear. And when God has given you a dream, it's never going to be just a dream to bless you. It's a dream to bless other people. You get blessed in the meantime, but it's a dream to bless other people. And when you are filled with love for others, then that motivates you to do what you fear anyway, because you know it's the right thing to do.
That's good. Now, you are an innovative thinker. You don't just come up with the program a little bit different. You really innovate. When people innovate, has everybody throughout your career come around and said, Rick, that's a beautiful idea. All of us are in full support?
Everybody has barrier busters and border, what do you call them?
Border bullies.
Okay, border bullies. Let me say it again. Okay, we'll just keep going here. You know, the truth is, Bruce, everybody has border bullies in their life. And I've never had anything that I've done that was of significance that wasn't told me was wrong by somebody else. If you wait for everybody to get on board, the ship's never going to get out of the harbor.
So if I'm a person who feels, if God's in this, everybody will be in favor of what I want to do, that hadn't been true for you.
No, it's not. Of course it's not true. Anytime God is in it, let's just remember, Jesus was perfect and still was criticized. Jesus was perfect and still misunderstood.
Wait, Rick. Listen, we read your book, we see you on the front pages of magazines. You're not really criticized.
I am criticized. Just come read my email. Just come read my email. The truth is, you're always either a hero or a zero. And just about the time you get crowd A pleased, crowd B gets uptight with you. And you get crowd be pleased, crowd. You know what? Trying to please everybody, Bruce, is kind of like you're trying to do what even God can't do. Even God can't please everybody. I mean, somebody right now is praying for it to rain, and somebody's praying for it to be sunny. And two different people are praying for two different teams to win. God could not possibly please everybody all the time. So why would I do what God can't do? Only a fool would try to do that.
But you do care about what people think. You care about them a lot. And when that's happening, and when, let's say, quite a few people are border bullying you,
Right.
you must go home sometimes second-guessing yourself, wondering, how do you process that?
I've used a little formula most of my life about criticism, that if it's true, if the criticism is true, listen and learn from it. If it's false, ignore it and forget it. And 3, realize that only God is ultimately the judge of my life. Also, it's important to distinguish between the criticism and the critic. Sometimes the critic is not legitimate, but the criticism is. And actually, criticism can be a way to help me refine my dream and make it better. So I say that bad news is good news. And I tell my staff this, that bad news is good news. We don't get better through praise. We get better when somebody points out what needs to be fixed. We go, let's tweak that. And so bad news is actually good news.
Have you ever had, in all of your career, a time that you really had to stand all by yourself on something like this?
Oh, yeah, constantly. In fact, when I got the vision first to start the church, I was actually an interim pastor of a church of about 3,000 members in Dallas. And I said, I'm going to leave this church and go to Southern California and start a church with no members, no building. I don't know a single person in the valley. And I didn't get support from anybody.
From anybody?
From anybody.
Now, how did you cope with that? Rick?
Well, you know what? Fortunately, I prayed. I turned to my wife, and my wife encouraged me. I said, what do you think about this? Nobody else thinks it's the right thing to do. And she said, well, you know, Rick, I believe in God, and I believe in you, and it scares me to death, but let's go.
Oh, that's great.
And you know what? I have reciprocated that now, because she believed in me, and God has helped. We've seen the dream, explode. I've often thought, what would have happened if she had said, don't do it?
Oof.
Okay, how many thousands of people wouldn't be in the kingdom? And so now today, when God has given Kay some new dreams in her life, I'm going, I believe in you, and I believe in God, and it scares me to death, but let's go do it.
That's great. One other subject. When people see people like yourself so successful, they see that snapshot in time, and they view that it's been easy getting there.
Yeah.
We talk all in the course about the wasteland and about delays and postponements and frustrations and wanting to quit. Have you faced those?
Well, there is no success without delay. There is no success without going through that wasteland. And people often look at Saddleback and they say, look at these thousands and thousands of members, and they forget that we started with 2. We started with just my wife and I. And going from there to where we are today was a long, long haul. From the day when I started the church, I had no idea in January 1980 it was going to take 15 years before I would have my own building.
Did you ever in that period want to give up?
You know how often I've wanted to give up? Just every Saturday afternoon. Okay? As every Saturday afternoon before I start Saturday evening service, I'm going, surely, God, there's got to be a better messenger than this and a better message than this. And I get what I call PMS, pre-message syndrome. And I want to give up every single week. But I think one of the secrets of Saddleback is I'm pretty tenacious. Somebody said, an oak tree is just a little nut who refused to give his ground. and that's what we are. We just hold on, and never give up. Great people are just ordinary people who don't know how to quit. They just keep on going.
You've been a real inspiration to me as your friend.
Thanks.
And that you continue to stretch and to dream and to want and to risk.
Yeah.
And it's one of the greatest characteristics that I respect in you.
Oh, thanks.
When you come to this moment, what I would like you to do, Rick, is there's a lot of people listening all over the world, and they know who you are, and they respect what you're doing. Why don't you just from your heart speak a couple minutes directly into the camera and say, you know, if I could sit across from you about your dream, what do you want to tell the world at this moment? And just look past me and...
Okay. You know, when you think about your dream, some of you are feeling very inadequate. You feel very unworthy to fulfill this dream. And I know that because I had that same feeling. When I started Saddleback Church at the end of the first year, we had grown from 0 to about 150 people. And it was very exciting, but I was doing all of the teaching and preaching and praying and baptizing, and I was pretty much burning out. And in that burnout experience, the last Sunday of the first year, I collapsed as I was teaching. I actually fainted in the pulpit. And I went through a period of depression because there were two haunting fears going through my mind at that point. One was, I said, God, I don't deserve this. You are blessing me too much. And I thought, you know, God has taken me and from this little beginning of just Kay and I to now 150 people. God, I don't deserve this. I have a difficult time being just consistent in my quiet time, much less leading a church, pastoring a church. I don't deserve it. And the second fear that I felt was, God, I can't handle it. It's growing too fast. From 0 to 150 in 1 year, at that rate I figured, well, good night, within a few years we'd be running several thousand people. Little did I know. And I went out and I took a month off, and I went out to the desert, in the Arizona desert, and I left my wife and kids in Phoenix. And I had my desert experience with the Lord, in which I had to resurrender in my sanctuary, resurrender to God the ministry and said, God, it's your ministry. And Jesus said to me, whose church is it, Rick? And I said, it's your church, Lord. Jesus said, I will build my church. And Jesus said to me, you work on building people, and I will build the church. And I said, you got a deal, Lord. And out of that statement came the whole purpose-driven philosophy of building people rather than building the church. And when I said, God, I don't deserve it. And God said to me, you're right, Rick, you don't deserve it. It's all by grace. You know, I don't even deserve to be a Christian, much less be in ministry. And when I think about that all that God does in us and for us and through us and to us and by us, He does by grace through faith, I would encourage those of you who feel like your dream is too big and you're afraid, or your dream is something that you don't deserve to be able to fulfill, I would say to you, you're dead wrong. You're dead wrong. That God uses ordinary people in extraordinary ways. If God only used perfect people, nothing would get done. And so God wants to say to you, you are a trophy of grace. And I will use you. I have chosen you. You have not chosen me. I've chosen you to go forth and bear forth fruit. And that dream was put by God in you. And you're never going to be fully satisfied in life. And you're never going to be all God means for you to be until you begin to go after it. So do not be afraid.
Ultimately, yes. Does God have a dream for everybody? I would say, yeah, He does. Many people say, boy, I wonder what God's purpose for my life is. What is that thing? What is my purpose? What's God's will for my life? And I feel that we're all given unique talents and unique abilities and unique ideas. And we need to follow those dreams and follow those ideas. If we really want to get down to the basic fundamentals of what is God's will for our life, what does He want us to do, it really boils down to a few simple things, and it's written out in black and white in letters from God to you and to me in a book called the Bible.
Like I said earlier, you're not called to the easy life, right? As long as I'm in the graces of God, I got nothing to worry about. I've always said that I'm going to do so many films, not one more, not one less. I've been given this career. God Himself has given me everything I've ever had, ever wanted. I've felt the call to be an actor 12 years ago. I had no business getting into it. But I felt the Holy Spirit calling me, begging me on, this is where I want you to be, this is what I need you to do. How many guys get to play Jesus Christ? I mean, one thing you'll never hear me say is his name in vain on film. I owe him so much. This has just been a blessing. I remember when I did The Thin Red Line, Terry Malick has done 3 films, and someone asked me, well, aren't you sad you'll never get to be in a film with him again because he only uses an actor once when he discovers him? I said, at least I got to work with him, you know. And same thing goes with, you know, Mel Gibson and playing this role. There's been, I don't know how many times this film's been done, maybe 5 times, The Life of Christ, that I'm a kid from Mount Vernon, Washington, that grew up not even dreaming of being an actor, that becomes an actor and is led and gets to play his son, our Lord's son. Man, I'm okay. Don't feel sorry for me.
I very much believe that God has given me a dream. He gave me a dream when I was a very little girl, probably 10 or 11 years old. I went to a radio station in my hometown. While I was a Girl Scout, I went on a Girl Scout field trip, a Girl Scout outing. We went to the radio station, and from the moment I walked in, something in my spirit, something inside me clicked, and I knew that's where I wanted to be, and I knew that's what I wanted to do. Which is very funny because the town I grew up in only had one radio station. It wasn't like there was this plethora of stations or that I got to listen to, you know, all these disc jockeys or anything. It was just one little station, and I loved it. I loved everything about it. I loved the vinyl. That's back when we played records, and I loved the announcer. I loved all aspects of it. So I knew then that's what I wanted to do. That was my dream. I definitely believe that God has a purpose, a dream, a vision, a plan for everyone's life. And our job is to avail ourselves to Him so that we can get the information. Okay, what do you want me to do? Where do you want me to go? How do you want me to accomplish this thing? And I think He plants that dream in us probably at birth. You know, maybe even at creation when, you know, when on a cellular level, when we begin our journey here in life, we're given that dream.
I sing all over the world. I've been in South Africa, I've been in South Korea, places I didn't even know existed. One thing you can learn about certain places all over the world in high school and you learn about them, but when you go there, it's like, wow, this is so great. It was fulfilled, the world part, and I gave it to God. I said I wanted, and He did it. Now it's so much greater. I was like, I've seen the world, Lord. Now I want to touch people all over the world. Not just through music. I want to touch them through my music when they hear the music, but now it's verbal. Now it's like personal, hand to hand. It's about everyday people. And the way we get there is we accomplish great things. We travel the world. I really believe God takes us to certain places in our life so we could have a certain kind of, how would you say it? God allows us to establish relationships with certain people so then we can go into other places that we could have never imagined before. But because He gave us those talents and gifts, now I can go somewhere else. I can not only use my voice and my acting skills, but now I could tell young people, it's possible. You can do it. So my dream is not just to be on the radio anymore. My dream is not to just to sing all over the world anymore. And it was cool. Like, I want to be a star. I want to sing in the world. I want people to know me. I want people to know God. It's very important to share your dream because it encourages other people. I wouldn't be here today if it wouldn't have been people in my life that shared dreams, their dreams. And I was 5. I was young, but I think I saw my parents growing up and where they've come from. They've come a long way in their life. And their successful living made me want to do great things in life and have a successful way of living and then inspire other people. So it's important to carry on the dream and then tell somebody about it because there's somebody out there waiting for you to inspire them.
And I know that God put a dream in everyone's heart with a purpose. I saw myself years ago in the limelights on a building, said George Foreman doing something inside of it, and I've been trying to get inside that building all my life. Service. The dream for my life now is to be of service to human beings. I'm a product of a compassionate society that never gives up on its underprivileged, and I wanted to join the ranks of never giving up on the underprivileged as well. I would tell anyone to embrace your dreams. Don't let anyone ever talk you out of them, because everyone is special. And the other thing that makes you special is not so much as your physical stature, it's the dreams that you have inside of you. They're personal. And what really makes me happy is that God has been able to help others through my dreams. My brother Roy and I started the George Foreman Youth and Community Center in 1984 with the sole purpose of making kids believe in themselves. And they looked at me and said, he was heavyweight champ of the world, maybe I should. So my dream benefited a lot of people.
Yes, I do believe that that God has tailor-made a dream for me, and I'm just kind of pursuing it, just a little step by step, but not trying to get ahead of Him as He reveals it even more and more. So, yeah. Yes, I believe that having a chance to music for God and to reach people all over the world and just be used as a tool, you know, and that capacity, I think has been very fulfilling to a dream that I had when I was a kid, you know, just standing on top of the roof late at night singing on top of the roof to the birds. So yeah. I feel that my dream is changing the more I get older. You know, I think that the dream is no longer so selfish, that it's more kind of tailor-made to, you know, making Him smile as much as I want to smile with it. I believe that God has a dream for every creation, that when He created us, He put a dream inside of us. And we need to be pursuing it. You know, we don't have a lot of time.
I think part of my dream when I was 20 was that I thought there weren't very many Christians in show business. And I remember when Dean Jones, the guy who was in The Love Bug, the Disney movie, when I was a child, I remember my parents said, he's a Christian. And our whole family like lit up, like, a Christian? There's a Christian who's an actor? You know, like we didn't have any role models. I always wished Julie Andrews was a Christian, and because I wanted to be Julie Andrews. That was, you know, that was basically my dream. When I was 17, my dad said, what do you want to be when you grow up? Because you're going to be growing up pretty soon. And I said, he goes, if you could be anything you want, what would you be? And I said, I want to be Maria in The Sound of Music. And so that's kind of why I started going towards show business, because I don't know, I thought if I could be anything, that's what I want to be. But there weren't any Christian role models, and I thought, I remember many times like saying to God, if I ever did get to be famous in show business, I would tell people I'm a Christian, so they would see that you don't have to just be boring and you know, Christians can have fun and be happy and funny. They don't have to just sit in pews all the time. The Christian thing started happening in the last couple years when I was on Politically Incorrect all of a sudden, and I was defending the Lord against 4 atheists. Me and Bill Maher had the same agent, and all of a sudden I'm on national TV talking about Jesus, and I'm like, oh my goodness, my dream, both of my dreams are coming true right now. It's kind of scary. It's a big responsibility. And then I was walking through the airport one day and everyone was recognizing me. I thought, well, I guess I did get famous. Now's the time to start telling people I'm a believer. I still have the dream of playing an airhead on TV. I used to think you could only do that when you were 20, but now I'm thinking you could be an airhead grandmother on a sitcom, an airhead 80-year-old. I passionately love playing an airhead on TV, so I think that's still my dream. And it's still my dream to be a Christian testimony doing that. And so I guess I'm living in the dream right this moment as we speak, and it's kind of overwhelming me.
Absolutely. And the dream started when I was 5, and that was the dream to become a minister. And I prayed it every night, make me a preacher when I grow up. And then when I was in seminary, I got the dream of wanting to start a church because I was very ambitious, and I knew that if I didn't start my own church, I'd probably want other churches, and I might be jealous. So I prayed for a place big enough to keep me busy all my life, and here I am. Yes, I do. For my mother, who wasn't able to have a high school or college education, it was to be a mother and then to raise those children and motivate them to become all they could be. And then it was also a dream to make the best apple pies in town, and I think she did. And she would give them to a family if there was a death in the family or an injury or a happy celebration. And that was her dream. I really am so impressed by Bruce, by his work, his ministry, his life, and I'm so thankful for this. And in one of his writings, he talks about border bullies. I've seen them every time we move to take another dream and move it forward. And the first time it happened, I started the church with one member, my wife. And so we finally got about 150 people together and organized a church. And it was a lot of work. One of my elders hired, without my consent or approval, a seminary graduate to be my assistant. He came from a very negative school of theology. He had negative emotional hang-ups. He was a problem. And he told the people that I really didn't preach the gospel. He tried legally to have me dismissed as a pastor so he could take over. It was a horrific time. I didn't know what to do. Finally, one day, in blackness of despondency, I cried out in tears and in a prayer, Lord, what can I do? I don't believe in firing him. And then I heard the message in my head, I will build my church. I got out of my chair and said, Lord, you take over. I'm tired, can I take a vacation? And I heard him say, yeah, go ahead. And while I was on vacation, this negative guy got a call to serve another church in another town. And by the time I came back, he was gone. God solved it. Well, I would say make your dreams big enough for God to fit in. And I would ask the question, what dreams would you have if you knew you could not fail?
I do believe that God has a dream just for me, but He also has wonderful dreams for other people. And I remember reading the Bible verse, Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 11. God said, I have a plan for you. I have a hope for you. I don't have a plan to harm you. So I really believe when God says that He has special dreams for you, only just for you. I usually tell people when I'm working on my dreams, I let them know that, sometimes people think I'm from another country because of my accent. And when I was competing at the pageant, and right before I competed at the final night, someone thought I was from France. And I said to myself, what am I except a sweetheart with a French accent because I'm so different? And you have to listen to your heart and say that you can do it because God is always there for you. He always provides a way. So it's important for me to share my dream with other people because I'm here to glorify God, just like God created everyone else to glorify Him. And there's a lot of people who do not have faith in God. And what a great way to serve the Lord when you are on earth. And yes, I do want to share my dreams with them because I understand that God has greater dreams for them. And in some way, we're supposed to motivate them. And say, you could do it. I know you could do it. I would love to see what God is doing in your life. So yes, it is important to share our dreams with other people.